On the last video of this module, we looked at how we can access different types of reports within Google Analytics 4, the overview reports and the detail reports. We spent a bit of time going through the detail report, specifically looking at primary dimensions, adding in secondary dimensions, and some of the metrics that you get available to use as well. In this video, we're going to pick up from where we left off, and we're going to talk about other ways that we can work with these type of reports, including ways of filtering them and comparing different data sets against each other. We're going to look at 3 different types of filters and 2 different types of comparisons that we can use in our reports. The first one is changing the date range, filtering based on date. We can do this in any type of report, whether it's overview or detailed, and it's available in the top right-hand corner of the screen. By selecting on it, it opens up this menu where we can choose different predefined date ranges, whether that's by day, week, different variations of that, or month or year even. We can even select a custom date range where we can manually select the start and the end date to our liking. Clicking apply will then apply that to the report, whatever report we happen to be in, and as you scroll down you can see that everything has changed based on that date range. The next 2 types of filters can only be done in the detailed reports. So the first version of this is the table filters. So as it might suggest, this only applies to the data table that we see just below the graphs at the top of the page. There's a search box just above the primary dimension where we can search for anything that might be contained within the primary dimension itself. This is a contains match and isn't case sensitive. So if I search for something like Safari in this list, you can see it returning every variation of browser that contains the word Safari. One thing to note at this point is that the headers of the table have updated, and it gives us the relative percentage of total for each of the metrics we're looking at, which can be really handy. To remove the table filter, we just select the X next to where we've searched and it brings it back to where we were before. The last type of filter we're going to look at is something called data filters, and again this is only available in the detail reports. At the top of the report we can see there's a button that enables us to add a filter. By clicking this button, it opens up the right-hand panel where we get a couple of options. The first thing we do is select the dimension that we want to apply the filter to, and then we select our match type, and then we select the condition itself. Once we're happy, we can then double check via checking this logical statement underneath, and then once we're happy to apply it, we can click the apply button and see it work. Just to note that this filter applies to all of the data available in this report, including the charts at the top and the data table at the bottom. We can also combine the table filters alongside the data filters. So now that I know that this report is filtered, I can go back to my table filter and do a similar search for Safari, and it returns different results now. I can remove either one of these. I can remove the table filter again using the X, and I can also remove the data filter just by hovering over it. If I will hover over it, it gives us an update of the statement that we've used, and then I can click the little X to remove it entirely. There's 2 ways we can compare data in GA4. The first way is using our date range selector. If I go back into that date range selector on either an overview or detailed report, I can select my date range as we've done before, but there's an option at the bottom to enable a comparison period. If I use that toggle, it also gives me some additional predefined selections for me to choose between, or again I can select a custom period to compare against. Whatever I choose, I can click apply, and now whatever report I'm in, you'll see it doubled up in terms of one period and the previous period. Depending on the type of report we're in, you might see it presented slightly differently, whether it be in a second line in a line chart, or a second bar in a bar chart, or even just a percentage change. But if we go into a detailed report, you'll notice that the data table itself, each line is now turned into 3. We've got our first period, our second period, and the percent change. Again, that header row is very valuable here. It gives us the number for each period as well as the overall change. Looking in a detail report at the top left-hand corner of the screen just above the title, we can see this area that says comparisons. Now there is always already one comparison applied called the all user comparison, but using this button next to it enables us to add in some new custom comparisons. Doing so opens up this new right-hand panel, which gives us a list of all of the pre-made comparisons that are available to us. Some of these will be made by Google by default, some of them from the administrators of your GA4 property. We can select one of these, or we can even create our own custom comparisons. By doing so, selecting this button at the top gives us a screen very similar to how we would add filters into the report. We select the dimension, the match type, and the conditions we want to apply, double checking the logical statement before we click apply.
We can do this up to 4 times. We can have 4 custom comparisons applied in any report. And once we've done that, as many as we like, we can then use this toggle to turn them all on and off, which can be a very handy tool. Seeing how this affects the data, however many comparisons we apply, it creates that many lines in our charts or bars in our bar charts, and in the table underneath, it gives us that many rows of the data as well. The header in this table is really useful because it gives us a quick snapshot of the totals for each of these comparisons. Comparisons are sticky, which means we can browse the rest of Google Analytics 4, including overview reports, for example here, and we can quickly turn on or off those comparisons to be able to compare this data anywhere we go.
I think this is a good time to bring in Dara to give us a bit of an overview of how this can be used in our day-to-day lives.
Thanks, Dan. So comparisons are an essential feature if you want to compare different subsets of data within Google Analytics 4. The main reasons you might want to do this is if you're comparing website and app data, or even different versions of an app. So if you want to compare iOS and Android versions of your app. You might also use it to compare different subdomains that you're tracking, all as part of the same property within GA4.
Great, thanks, Dara. So just to recap, in the reports workspace, there's 3 different types of filters we can use. We can use a date range filter, we can use a table filter, and a data filter. And there's 2 different ways of us comparing data against each other. And that is using the date range comparisons and also the data comparisons.